Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be ranking my top 10 favorite films from this year. And if you want to see a list of all the movies I saw this year, I'll leave a link in the description to my letterbox down below. And there's about like 30-ish movies that I saw, so you can go check that out. Anyways, getting into the list, coming at number 10, we have Gran Turismo, which I did not expect to be on this list whatsoever. I mean, like, completely off my radar back in August when it came out. I honestly went to see Strays instead of this movie, which...
Per se.
There you go, Red.
I'm doing good.
Tell it, Gnome, you're his daddy.
Hey, Gnome, I'm your father. It's good to finally meet you,
Reggie.
even under these strange circumstances.
Red.
Wasn't a great idea. Yeah, but I really did like this movie. I didn't know anything about Neil Blomkamp. I didn't know that it was based on a true story. I didn't know any of that. All I knew was David Harbour was in it, and I like David Harbour. So after figuring out who Neil Blomkamp was, I watched District 9 and Chappie, and I thought those were great. So I watched this one, and I also found it to be great. Maybe not as good, but I thought it worked really well. And the car sequences, and the fact that they filmed the car sequences for real, I thought was awesome. Yeah, it just works well on so many different levels. I think there are flaws within the movie. I think it's a little long, but I think for the most part, it worked really well. Anyways, coming at number 9, we have Killers of the Flower Moon, which is directed by none other, the one and only Martin Scorsese. And I think a lot of people's complaint with this movie is that it's long. And it really is really long. But I think Martin Scorsese had a lot of good intentions in making this movie. Like, it brought a lot of awareness to the Osage Nations and the killings that happened there. Because I must say, I didn't know anything that happened there. I didn't know anything about that, of the Osage Nation, until this movie came out. And I gotta say, I did learn a lot from this movie. But yeah, I do think the pacing is a little rocky throughout this entire movie. But I think the performances by Leonardo DiCaprio, great. I think they maybe made his character seem more like of a good guy. I feel like they could have made him more of the bad guy in the movie. I know he is the bad guy, but it really just didn't show as much as I would have liked in the movie. But Lily Gladstone did a really good job as well. Robert De Niro, he's great. And Brendan Fraser was also in the movie. I thought he did a great job, and the whole side cast was also great. Next up, coming at number 8, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which I think is going to be the last good Marvel movie. I think James Gunn did a really good job at making this movie. I thought Rocket's backstory was easily the best part and was so good. One of the best things about just Marvel in general. I love when they go a little bit darker and deeper into these characters, and yeah, I think Rocket's one of the best characters in the MCU, not just in Guardians. And I also thought Nebula's character was really good too. Throughout the entire MCU, she's had a lot of development, but in this movie too, she was just great. I thought the High Evolutionary was one of the best villains in the MCU, but I did think that like Peter Quill's character and Drax's character could have used a little bit more development. I know we'll see more of Star-Lord, probably not, but I feel like those characters could have, especially Drax, had a lot more development. If you took away Adam Warlock and Gamora and just give a little bit more character arcs and developments for them, then I feel like the movie could have worked a little bit better. And I also feel like some of the humor, I mean, as James Gunn does, a lot of it doesn't land, and I feel like you could have just cut away a lot of the humor and made it more of a darker movie. And it was a dark movie. I just wish we leaned in a little bit more to how like emotional the whole Guardians could have been about Rocket dying. I feel like they just started cutting at jokes and like laughing around at some points after like Rocket was like getting chest surgery. It just didn't really work as well as I wish it did. But overall, still a really good movie. Anyways, coming at number 7, we have Godzilla Minus One, which is at everyone's number 1 on this year's movie list. And I kind of had to disagree with that. I don't think it's the best movie of the year. I can see why. It's entertaining, it's fun, a lot of Godzilla action. It's got a really good human story going for it, which I give it a lot of props to, because in most Godzilla movies, the ones I've seen, I really couldn't care less about the human story, but in this one it worked really well. And I think that's because you have this post-World War II aesthetic to the whole movie, which is what Godzilla was originally made for. He was supposed to symbolize these nuclear warheads and weapons and all this propaganda. And I think that works in this movie's favor so much, and it's easily the best Godzilla movie I've seen, and that's why it works so well. I just feel like at some points it gets a little cheesy. I know it's a Godzilla movie, it can get cheesy, but for me it's just a little too cheesy with some of the characters, like a little too generic. I've seen them before, I've seen it done better, and especially the ending of the movie, not the climax, but like the last bit of the ending of the movie got a little too cheesy for my liking. I realize it's Godzilla, but I feel like they could have wrapped it up a little bit better. They had a really good story going, and then they just kind of strayed away from it. I wasn't a big fan of it. I thought they could have done a better job, but overall, still really good movie. Next up, coming at number 6, we have The Creator, which insane visual effects, and I know a lot of people diss on it because, well, the story's a little lacking compared to the visual effects. I thought the story was good for the most part. I feel like this simple story works in this cool new, like, what was it, 2070 or something? It works to me, and all the visual effects, great. It looks awesome. John David Washington was great. The kid was also great. The whole side cast I thought was really good. I think the movie could have been a bit shorter and had a little bit more development in John David Washington's character with his wife and the kid. I feel like we could have had a little bit more development, so at the end of the movie there could have been a bit more payoff, like a little bit more setup and payoff throughout the entire movie. I feel like that could have worked a lot better, because at the end it kind of feels a little rushed and a little strange to me. I don't know, that's only my big complaint with the movie. I feel like, yeah, the pacing a little slow at the start there, but once you get into it, it's really good for the most part. It's very like going from point A to point B to point C movie, and I think that works in its favor. Next up, coming at number 5, we have The Holdovers, which is a very deeply emotional movie, but also a very like light-hearted movie at the same time. It takes place at Christmas. You got these kids, and they get left behind on Christmas break, and this teacher that no one likes has to take care of them for the whole winter break, and he doesn't want to be there either. And it kind of makes this whole family out of these people. With also the cook gets involved. It's a very emotional movie, but it really does work. The aesthetic of the movie was so good, like the 80s look. I thought all the actors did a great job. At the end of the movie, it makes you feel good. It's a good movie. Next up, coming at number 4, we have David Fincher's The Killer, which stars Michael Fassbender. He did such a good job. I think this movie has to be one of the funniest movies of the year. Not because it's like this laugh out loud comedy, but because it's almost like a satire of assassin movies while also being a love letter to them at the same time. And I think David Fincher blended those together perfectly, and it just plays like you could have done such a poor job making this movie, but with Michael Fassbender and David Fincher, like you don't even see very many other characters. Like sure, Tilda Swinton's in it, but it's more just only Michael Fassbender, and it just works so well on so many different levels. The cinematography looks great. The whole like pacing of the movie is just great, and like it's not gonna be just an assassin killing movie where he has these big fights. It's not like a James Bond movie or anything. It's just more of this simple artistic killer movie. And there's only like one fight scene in the whole movie, which is a great fight scene, by the way. I don't think I've ever seen a fight scene from David Fincher, and he did a great job. But yeah, it's just this almost slow but fast. The pacing for this movie is perfect. It's right in the middle where it needs to be, and it works so well. Yeah, I thought it was great. Coming at number 3, though, we have Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse. Of course, it was going to be on this list. Although everything's already been said about this film, I can't really add anything on. I thought all the technical aspects of this movie is great. Is it the best Spider-Man movie? No, but it works where it needs to. I think it does everything Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse did well, and just does it 10 times better. The animation is great. The soundtrack to the movie is great, while also the original score being great. Miles Morales, I love how they made him so much different from Peter Parker, and they didn't just like race swap Peter Parker. Like he's his own character. It works so well. Miguel O'Hara as Spider-Man 2099, best part of the movie. He was so good. Spider-Gwen, Gwen Stacy, she was great. Spider-Punk, even the dad. I think Miles Morales' dad has to be the funniest part of the movie. I thought he was great. I wish we got a little bit more Spot. Like, I want to say he's a really good villain, but I wish we got a little bit more of him. But yeah, it's only the first part of the movie, and I think they could have ended it. I know a lot of people have the same complaint. I think they could have ended it a little bit better, made it more like Infinity War and made it felt like a complete story. But you gotta make it a little different, right? So I think this movie worked too on its own terms. So yeah, I mean, it's great. Coming at number 2 now, we have The Iron Claw, which I just saw, and it is just a tragic, true story about the Von Erich family and kind of the foundation of the WWF. Like, this whole family is very famously known. I mean, I didn't know about them. I don't know much about wrestling or sports, clearly, but I think Sean Durkin did a really good job, and not just like if you're a wrestling fan and you know the Von Erichs, you're going into this movie, you're gonna love it. But if you're not a wrestling fan and you just go in to see this movie, you're gonna also love it, because like it works as its own solid film. And yeah, Sean Durkin and the whole cast did an incredible job, especially Zac Efron. I didn't think he was that good of an actor before seeing this movie, and wow, was I wrong. I mean, I think he should not only be nominated for Best Actor, he should win Best Actor. He did such an incredible performance, and his transformation was incredible. He looks huge. Yeah, but I thought the rest of the side cast was great. Jeremy Allen White, he's awesome. I wish we got a little bit more of him in the movie, because I know Kerry Von Erich was like the most famous one out of the whole family. Like, he's the only one that got to the WWF. And I just wish we saw a little bit more of him. And there's this odd scene in, I think the middle of the movie, where it just, I'm not gonna spoil it, but it cuts to black, and it shows like this time jump, and they don't really explain it that well in the movie. I thought that could have been done a little bit better. And my only other complaint is at the end of the movie, again, not gonna spoil it, not the very end, but coming near the end, where it just felt like a little bit more rushed than the other scenes in the movie, and I thought they could have done a better job. And honestly, I wish it was just silent. I wish there was no dialogue in the scene. I thought the dialogue kind of made it a little cheesy, but overall, I still love this movie, and I feel like it just did a really good job of showing the tragedy of family while also celebrating it at the same time. Just beautiful movie. But coming at number 1, to no one's surprise, the better half of Barbenheimer, Christopher Nolan's magnum opus, Oppenheimer. Where in most cases this film would have been a boring slodge of a movie, somehow Christopher Nolan made this gripping while also thrilling movie, which is basically dialogue scenes. This movie just works on so many different levels. Like, it had me attached to the seat the entire time. It was just phenomenal. The Trinity test, like the whole sequence of the Trinity test was one of the most intense sequences. I think it is the most intense sequence I've ever seen in a movie, and especially in a movie theater. It was just dead silent in the whole movie theater. Everyone's hearts was racing. I honestly thought the movie theater was about to blow up. It was it was a pretty cool experience. Everything's already been said about this movie. Cillian Murphy was awesome. Emily Blunt was also phenomenal. And Robert Downey Jr., the standout, he did such an incredible job in this movie. Not as good as Kirk Lazarus in Tropic Thunder, but I think he was still really good in this movie. But yeah, it's just an incredible movie that I honestly don't even have any flaws with. I think the pacing for this 3-hour movie just worked. And I think the ending of the movie has to be one of the best endings of all time, and how it connects to the scene that's like one of the first scenes in the movie, and it's just like you wouldn't expect it for this big like movie about a bomb. Like it's just only Christopher Nolan could make this